Hi, I'm Sarah.
I'm Leo.
You guys, we have a Wednesday night episode to talk about Big Brother 23, and we've got some live feed spoilers, some video. I was going to say video talk, but it's actually a vote talk is what we're going to do. But anyway, but first, if you're new to this channel, please click subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And also, welcome back, Leo.
Hello, thank you. Great to be here.
Yay! So glad that you got to come back. We know and love Leo from Amazing Race, but we also know and love Leo because he's a friend of Nerdtainment. Are you able to keep up with this season of Big Brother? There's a lot going on.
That for me?
Yeah, that's for you.
Rhetorical. Okay, yeah. So the answer is yes. As of this weekend, I think I watched 8 episodes. So
you had to catch up, right?
Yeah, so I've been watching Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did try to watch the live feeds once, and it was just kittens, and that was a little surprising, but not unpleasant. I woke Alana up. I was like, they're kittens. And then I kind of have known what's going on, but had fallen behind in the episode. So now I'm caught up, and I was thinking to myself, I'm really just a casual, like it's my first season. But then I was thinking, well, actually, if I were a true casual, I wouldn't even know about casuals. So I feel like I'm one level above a casual.
Right. You're a casual with a little bit of inside info. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to really, really catch you up here, Leo. Let's get into this Wednesday episode. We're coming off of the highly roller room thingy majiggy, and we're going to go into this veto derby where Kyland is sort of setting it up for us that he doesn't want it to screw up his HOH, but he also needs it used. Like these are kind of his driving forces through this HOH and through this episode.
Yeah, I was like, I know that he put Claire up and then sort of felt good about Claire because Tiffany worked her magic, right?
Sure.
It wasn't totally clear to me what the plan was after that. I mean, I know that like Brittany's name obviously got thrown out there, but Kai's HOH to me feels adrift. I knew he failed to throw it in the first place. He could have really just sort of kept his hands clean. So I'm a little lost about why he's ended up in this position.
Well, he couldn't allow Sarah Beth to be in danger. That's basically why he's HOH. And Claire was his target going in. But there's a few reasons why the target changed, and we will get into all of that as we get into this episode here. First, they're going to make sure that we see this handshake between Brittany and Kyland. I love it. The edit is making it very clear that a deal was on the table, and they did shake on it. Now, in reality, when I watched this happen in real life, in real time, it did not feel to me like Kyland took the deal. He did a lot of hemming and hawing. She's presenting, hey, I'll give you 2 weeks of safety if you keep me safe. And he's like, good points. Yeah, as you do when someone offers you a deal that you're not planning on taking. And she did rope him into a handshake at the end, but it did not feel, he'd never said, yes, I will do this. This is a deal. So this is interesting that the edit made it look like, no, they made a deal.
Okay, right. So, a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, it's Kyland. So anything that he's saying is going to involve hemming. There could be hawing.
A lot of hemming and hawing.
You might need to say, okay, if Xavier was doing this, that would be like, all right, obviously there's no deal. It's Kyland though, so how are you supposed to even know what?
How are you supposed to know? Yeah, you got to read between the hems and the haws.
But the other thing, and the he's and the haws, because I believe, yeah. But the other thing is that I mean, I guess this just gets back to the heart of Big Brother. Like from week one, people saying, final two, right? And I mean, you either trust them, like 90% of the time, someone's lying, right? So
Right.
I guess like I don't totally side with anyone who feels so betrayed. If someone's lied to them, it's just the way it is.
It is. Everyone is correct. Even if it was a cut and clear, very much took the deal, made the deal, shook on the deal, people will lie and make deals. And how many final twos do people have? Obviously, you can only be loyal to one. So yes,
you got to get cut at some point.
Game. Yeah, this is the game that we play for sure. So now we're gonna watch Derek Frazier act. This is the most he has played the game, you guys. He has been like, performance time. Oh, I'm the target. Oh, what, Kyland? He's doing so much of that. Yes, a lot of very dramatic stuff.
Or shaking fist at the floor. Right.
Oh, Kyland, you got me. I think he wants me out. We don't get along.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, so if I heard correctly, because please bear with me, I watched about 6 hours in a row on Sunday. What his reason for hiding it is because it's just too much to manage in terms of like Brittany and Azah realize if they realize he's a pawn, that's just a lot of secret keeping for that period of time. Is that basically his thinking?
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's mostly for Brittany. He should never have lied and acted.
That was going to be my question.
It didn't make sense.
How's he going to explain that to her later? And I know the cookout has drama, but I thought that Azah and Big D were pretty close. Like now there's going to be something between them once this comes out.
Yes, and Azah knows that Derek Frazier is not the target. There's no way the cookout has a cookout member target. When Kyland found out at one point on Saturday, Derek Frazier told Kyland about his acting, and Kyland was like, "What are you doing? And don't lie to Azah. Please tell her the truth." It didn't make sense to most people.
Well, and then the conclusion she would draw is that somehow Kyland is off the rails, right? Like that's where I'm lost. Either she's mad at, like, because let's say Brittany ends up going, right? Then she's mad at Derek F for lying. Her tight alliance of 3 is down to 2, and she's mad at one of them. So if you're Derek F, well, you have to think, who's Azah going to turn to? Who becomes her closest confidant? It's not going to be you.
Faith, thank you so much for the super chat, and we do wish you luck in school.
Congrats.
Glad that school is even happening. Yes, good. Go for it. Do it. School, life. I'm just at home. Yeah. DF does.
School.
What? Well, that happens too, I guess.
Let me back.
DF did have to end up being truthful to Azah, and then that's true. Then Azah then had to keep the secret from Brittany, which was really hard for Azah. But in this moment here in the edit,
Azah's not going to like that. I mean, I get that, but she's not going to see it that way,
But she didn't have any choice at that point. No, she was like, well, okay, Brittany's the target. Brittany's going up. You're a pawn. It is what it is. The Jokers here together are going to make their plan for the veto on how they can keep everyone safe. Great idea. Hope they can pull it off. And they almost, maybe not really that close, but they tried.
Yeah. I mean... So one thing that I don't know if this made the episode, but was it clear what the order of the veto is going to be?
Yeah, like using it in the ceremony?
Yeah, so let's say Brittany won, then she would have veto, as would Big D, right?
Yeah, it's actually it's confusing because the second veto is the person who bet on the first, right? They actually go first.
Okay.
And then the person who has the real veto would go second.
Right. And their ultimate goal in this, I guess, or at least from Azah's perspective, is to protect Brittany
To not allow her to be a backup plan.
Right. The assumption is Big D is safe. Still sort of up in the air who the actual target is. At that point, Alyssa could have gone up. I feel like Alyssa could have.
And keep that in mind as we get to the veto. Yes. Alyssa is an option to go up, you guys. Kyland and Tiffany are going to have a little talk here. And Kyland's going to be like, Claire's targeting so many people in the cookout. And Tiffany's like, oh, crap. Let me push this away. And what they don't show us in the edit is that she says she's lying to you. She's going to target you and Sarah Beth. And that actually is more appealing to Kyland than her targeting 3 people in the cookout. If it's just the one him, not worried about her, because they have the votes to save him and send out Sarah Beth. So that's in his head.
So sorry.
Yeah.
You said Tiffany said that Claire said.
Right.
That Claire, I'm just using names here. Claire would target Sarah Beth and Kyland.
Yes.
And Kyland felt comfortable with that because he would be safe because the cookout would save him.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying was the argument.
Right. That's how Tiffany helped Claire out in that moment in reality.
Now, the outcome, though, would have been Sarah Beth going home in that scenario, which if Claire did end up
with HOH
going through with that, right, getting saved and then executing that plan. So what is confusing to me still is why, like, the outcome is Sarah Beth going home, right? Kyland's goal supposedly is to save Sarah Beth.
Yes.
So he saves Claire, who's going to target Sarah Beth.
So Kyland would love to have Sarah Beth stay as long as possible, but that's not a reality. He doesn't have a lot of choice in that. So he's going to do his best to save Sarah Beth. But if someone just says that Kyland and Sarah Beth are their targets, like, that's understandable. That's a lot of people have said that in the house. He has to roll with that. If you say 3 people in the cookout are my targets, then you probably are going to end up with 2 of them on the block. They don't have the numbers. How do you do that? How do you save someone when there's 2 of them on the block? So one of them on the block, totally
right. That's the plan.
Possible.
That's
yeah. Right.
I guess the main theme here is that Tiffany is trying to save Claire and Kyland is trying to save Sarah Beth, but only for a week, really. And at some point, I think the cookout, like Tiffany's plan with these pairs, seems pretty brilliant, but I'm not convinced about the execution because she never actually came up with an order. She just sort of left it up to whatever.
They come up with a new order every couple hours.
Okay.
It is
what
all
I'm getting
they
at
talk
is that
about.
I feel like the order ideally would be that you agree with each other, like who's actually closest with their partner. Like, seems like maybe Kyland and Sarah Beth are growing a little too close. We have to cut her, right? Seems like Tiffany is like trying to save Claire just because. You could argue that she's being selfish. You could argue that she is like not able to, anyone is going to naturally grow close to their partner and like make irrational arguments to save them. That, to me, I understand, like with competitions, it's not going to be that smooth, but I at least as a casual, they haven't shown us any real rationale for like what that order is going to be. And then it's like an obvious recipe for infighting.
Yeah. I mean, that there and of itself is the problem because everyone has a different reason for their order. And that's why they talk about it all day, every day. And it changes hour to hour to hour. But Kathy's making a great point. It depends on who wins HOH. So Kyland won HOH this week. No one expects him to put Sarah Beth up. They're not going to put a gun to his head. They're not going to expect that. It would not make sense. So if Tiffany were to win HOH and let's say Claire was the next one in the order, it just wouldn't be able to work. They'd have to reshuffle. So some people want one order. Some people want another order. And the next day, then they wake up, they change their mind and they want a different order. What really is important, though, is how much you protect your person. No one is calling Tiffany out for protecting Claire in this moment. She's so subtle. She's so great. She said, Claire can go up, Claire can go home. I'm fine with that. And then she magically spreads some sprinkle dust and Kyland changes his mind. He doesn't sit there and go, Tiffany's protecting her side piece. Kyland won HOH. Everyone's like, oh, he's protecting his side piece. That one was more obvious. But Tiffany's touch is a little bit more subtle.
So what if, and this might be too chaotic, so feel free to just say that's ridiculous. Not that you need my permission to say that, but what if the cookout agreed that whoever was HOH would put up a cookout member and their own pawn, their own partner? It would take some of the emotion out of it. I think it would be pretty hard to follow as a non-cookout member, and they have a clear majority. So it would sort of almost be showing loyalty to the cookout. I'm not saying like this was the moment right before nominations to bring this up, but if Tiffany had proposed this in the first place, sort of made that commitment, like if I'm HOH, I will put up Claire and let's say, you know, who I don't want to say.
Well, I don't know why you would put Claire. Why would Tiffany put Claire up?
Because then it would simplify the decision of who the cookout HOH puts up. She would put up her own pawn, and then someone in the cookout would all vote out her pawn, and then the next because then if she doesn't do that,
you're then burning your jury vote. You're saying the one person I worked so closely with this whole time, I'm going to cut them. Then they are going to get real suspicious and be like, why would my number one ally, let's say you're Claire and Tiffany just put you up, you would go, holy crap, my number one ally just put me up. You are then going to know something is definitely fishy. You would absolutely start to clue in on the cookout. Whereas if I'm Tiffany and I put up Sarah Beth and Kyland as an obvious duo, then I'm not showing my cards that I'm in some other alliance. They're an obvious duo. I'm putting them up. And they're allowing you not to take out your closest ally. That's great.
No, I understand that was the idea of the pairs in the first place was to put up a pair, right? I hadn't thought about jury maintenance, so I think that's the main problem.
You and Paul, Leo.
What I was saying,
Paul.
But I do think that I was going to say it could be like if Tiffany had told Claire, like Claire would feel, I think Claire would feel comfortable at first sitting on the block against Tiffany because I guess no one would really trust being used as a pawn. That's even just being as a pawn is suspicious. So yeah, I get it.
It's hard.
But it also seems like there's gotta be some, for this not to just lead to constant infighting, it lacks some kind of structure that would take the emotion out of that decision. And then it's just going to be like that, like lobbying and like people insisting their pawn doesn't go up.
I would disagree and say it leads to a lot of gameplay because it forces them to maneuver and strategize around, am I in this alliance? Am I saving my +1? What am I doing? This person's HOH. How do I reevaluate and adjust? I don't know. I'm finding it quite enjoyable to watch these people try to maneuver this massive alliance.
I didn't say it wasn't enjoyable.
+1s.
Yeah,
oh no, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through, like, if I had been Tiffany and I had come up with this plan that she came up with, how could I have made it as a player less chaotic? And maybe there's not much to do, but that's what I'm thinking.
We don't want anything less chaotic, Leo. We don't. Well, we can talk so much more about that, but let's get through this episode and then we can analyze the cookout all day long because I do love it and it's amazing. So when we see Tiffany bring up Brittany here, honestly, Tiffany doesn't get full credit, even though I would love to give Tiffany all credit. What they do not show in this edit is that Brittany we already know Brittany got 100 BB bucks, but what they don't show us in the edit is the house guests talking about that. That 100 BB bucks put a massive target on Brittany's back and Derek X's back. Those two got 100. Those two are not in cookout. They will be able to afford these bigger twists in the next week or two. And that is a huge, terrifying thing for the cookout. And that is why Brittany became the target over Claire. That is why.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I feel like I just did the same thing for the last 20 minutes that the house guests did. Why not Derek X? I know that, like, the only thing I can think of is that he's a shield for Kyland, for Xavier, right?
It should be a Derek X. Yes, I agree. It should have been Derek X for most people's game, not for Tiffany's game. But it's because Kyland was HOH, and Kyland has worked very closely with Derek X this entire game. Derek X saved Kyland with a veto week 1. Burning Derek X is a huge thing, and he definitely loses that jury vote. That's a harder thing for Kyland to do than some of the other HOHs. And just because Brittany was also available, it's just easier for Kyland to do Brittany. Had Brittany already been out of the house and it was only Derek X with this, then I think Kyland would be backdooring Derek X this week. It would have been him, but he had this easier option. So
I want to quickly respond to one of the comments.
Yeah.
The cookout's so obvious. I would like to say that at least the Big Brother players have the benefit of an edit that makes it clear that they don't know about the cookout. Whereas on The Amazing Race, they didn't even make it clear that we didn't know about the Mine 5 or whatever they wanted to call themselves. And it was totally unknown to anyone outside that alliance. So I think that I guess my comment is that it's very easy to say as a viewer that something's obvious if you're being shown it. As far as Derek X, my question for you, Sarah, is do you really lose a jury vote? Derek X just did basically the same thing to Christian. Jury votes, at least on Survivor, are usually about gameplay and big moves, at least the seasons I've watched, and not, friendship. So I don't know. At some point, I'm curious if it makes more sense. You could even pitch the jury at the end. Like, I wasn't playing for your jury vote. Like, I had to get you at some point.
Yeah,
you made a big move too,
It's definitely a gray area, but like a Tiffany and a Claire, you can't take someone you've been working with that closely. You do need to consider.
But I'm talking like Derek X and Kai,
right.
And I think why wouldn't Tiffany? I mean, Tiffany wanted Derek X's blind side to fail last week. Like, she was campaigning hard against Christian going home. Derek X broke up the Royal Flush, basically. So at a minimum, it's strange to me, and I wonder if you saw this in the live feeds. It's strange that Tiffany didn't even suggest it, right? Like, if I were Tiffany, I'd want to. I mean, what do you have to lose, right? Like, Kyland has every option to say, no, I don't want that blood on my hands. Like, it's not my move. It's not time. And Tiffany would say, fine, just thought I'd mention it since Derek X is obviously a huge threat. Not in the cookout, comp beast. Like, he doesn't have power. Get him. Get him now. Who's saying that?
Yeah. You bring up a really good point, because when Kyland did bring up, Derek X is now a big threat, Tiffany was like, oh no, we don't need to get rid of him right now. Tiffany threw out her mist. Her little sprinkles. And then all of a sudden, you're not thinking he's as much of a big target, because now, Tiffany needs Derek X in this game.
Why does she?
Derek X is her key. He's her shield. He's her comp winner. Like, she honestly is his number one.
Oh,
right?
And they have a little thing going. I know she gave him a haircut. Spoiler.
Yeah, like everyone talks about like Hannah and Derek X are like the duo, but it's really Derek X and Tiffany for Derek X from his perspective. So Tiffany is in the best position with Derek X in the house. He will always protect her and talk to her. His HOH, she was very involved in that. So yeah, Derek X's name definitely came up. They've talked about it. And yes, I don't know that he definitely burns Derek's jury vote. That is a more gray area with Kyland and Derek X, but not as many people were like, yeah, Derek X, but they were like, yeah, Brittany, let's do Brittany, and we'll get Derek X next week.
Yeah, I mean, getting Brittany just feels so safe. You know, like I hear what you're saying, and the Tiffany DX thing adds up, at least as far as why she wasn't pushing for that. Again, it just seems like Kyland should have thrown it to Azah. Like, what is he?
Oh yeah, he didn't need to be HOH. Like,
no, and I get that. Like, I get that.
Whoa.
Like, that wasn't cool that he took it from her, but I would have at least understood if he's had some kind of reason or plan or motivation. If he was like, you know, like, then at least I could say, okay, that was low, but I see what you were trying to accomplish. He's just sitting there. I don't know.
It's not been the best HOH, this one for Kyland. You're supposed to come out of your HOH sitting better, but not this one for him for sure. So we're going to get our veto picks, and Kyland's going to pull Alyssa. Claire's going to pull Azah. And Derek Frazier gets to have house guest choice, and he picks Brittany. Now, for the Joker's plan, this is a good setup. We got all three Jokers. They could make some magic happen here.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, it's the Jokers, so things were not so straightforward for them.
Oh, their poor story in this season.
I don't even know. Yeah, like Azah, I feel like all I can say is maybe Azah could have like sort of glanced at Brittany, seen how she was doing, thought to herself, does she really have a shot at this? Right? Like, Azah was pretty smooth on that slip and slide. So I don't know. I think she could have just thrown in the towel for Brittany. Yeah.
Oh no, Azah did not need to throw that the way that she did. So then we get to do a fun public veto derby. Place your bets publicly. I think making it public is really, really interesting. They get the heads up that it's OTEV, which is very fun. We never get a heads up. So when the feeds came back that day, they were talking about OTEV, and we were all like, well, how do we know it's OTEV? But it makes sense for betting. Kai gets to bet first. He's going to bet on Alyssa. I guess he thought she could win, and turns out.
So I have to ask. I learned today what BB23 OTEV is, but I did not know what I do not know what OTEV is generally. Okay, I'll tell you what I think OTEV is. I think there's a creature involved.
Yes.
I think it involves clues from past episodes.
Yep.
And and I think you have to treat the creature with great respect.
Yeah, it's going to be rude to you and spit on you and do whatever anyway. It's always that same setup. There's some sort of creature. They change up the theme of it, but there's always a big mouth.
Okay.
There's always swamp below. You always have to pull yourself up.
Is it always a jacked creature?
No, that was like the whole Arnold thing was, that was a thing.
So it doesn't always have an Austrian accent.
Right, exactly.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, you always know, you have to know your days, your house guests, your information. Okay. But you also have to physically run around and get it, pull yourself up. It's going to be slimy or whatever. So you do have to have all the skills, not just mental, not just physical. So that was really good to have if you're betting on these people. So Kylan bets on Alyssa. Derek Frazier bets on Brittany. That's part of their plan. Claire bets on Kyland, which I think was the best bet. And then Sarah Beth bets on Azza, which I was like, why would you bet on Claire over Azza? But nobody wanted to bet on Claire or Derek Frazier.
Do they know the order of vetoes at this point? Like, sorry, this goes back to my initial question. Like, the person who bet on the person goes first or second.
Yeah, they know the order.
The reason I'm asking is because Azza looked displeased, or at least, poker face at best, when Sarah Beth bet on her. And I was wondering, I'm assuming Azza doesn't trust Sarah Beth. If Azza wins, then Sarah Beth would veto first, and Azza would veto second. Is that correct?
Correct. Did you say Azza would veto second?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just wondering, like, Sarah Beth's strategy. Do you think her strategy is more about who she thinks is going to win, or do you think it's more about wanting to have some sort of influence in the event that Azza wins? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was not sure why she went this way. I mean, the reason that Azza would be annoyed / whatever is because Sarah Beth is very much with Kyland. And so Sarah Beth's going to do whatever Kyland wants her to do. And then, and Azza's just worried that that's not anything that's going to help her. But I don't know what Sarah Beth was doing. And half the time, I don't know what Sarah Beth is doing. I'm not really sure she's in the game sometimes.
Yeah, so I think Sarah Beth and Kyland seemed particularly exhausted, a little tuned out. Like, I just...
Well, again, it wasn't a great HOH.
She had so much energy in the earlier episodes. Like, remember when she hosted that challenge?
Yeah, did you see the back of her legs?
Yeah,
the bruises are still there.
She mentioned the bruises from in her her speech last episode. Did she fall off the boat a lot? Was it from the?
I don't even remember what comp it was now, but she destroyed her legs in a comp, and just like they keep looking worse and worse. I mean,
yeah, she just seems really like she's got her shades on all the time, which like look dope, but she seems like she's having a hard time, and I'm not sure what it's about.
She didn't even know that Alyssa and Christian were in a showmance. I don't know what she's doing. If you couldn't tell your two teammates were in a showmance, what are you doing? What? Okay. Yeah. Well, let's get into OTAV. Okay, so yay! Those of us who are super fans, Leo, we get very excited about OTAV. Happens every year.
I got that.
Started, I think, what was it, season 6 or 7 was the first time it came in, and it has since become a huge thing. No surprise, Derek Frazier is going to be eliminated first. It's going to be very hard for him to pull himself up there, and I bet he didn't even know the answer. He probably copied somebody, but anyway, he's going to be out first. Not surprised.
No, I love his spirit and confidence in believing in himself in these competitions. He does. And he doesn't seem to need to win anything to stick around. So
no, he's got this great alliance that's just going to protect him for no reason. Azza is going to blatantly give Brittany the answer instead of just winning yourself, Azza. Just win yourself. But yes, great. In theory, if Brittany could have pulled this out, that would have looked great. But no, she just obviously gives Brittany the answer.
Now, let's review. If she had won, that would have given Sarah... This is what I was getting into before, but I know I jumped the gun. That would have given Sarah Beth a veto, right?
A veto. Mm-hmm.
So I guess that gives Azza extra motivation to sort of take her chances on this master plan.
Yeah. And if it really is going to come down to you and Brittany, I understand. Do not get Brittany out. You know, like you don't want to be the one to get Brittany out. If Azza was already up there, or there were still other people looking that kind of thing. But Ozza just probably couldn't handle being the one to get Brittany out, and then Sarah Beth gets a veto. What does that help Ozza? So
Yeah, I guess the
have
other thing is
to get
like,
it.
I know people were saying it's so obvious that you're throwing it, and on Twitter, people are tired of watching people throw Oh, here it is.
Here it is.
But Ozza and Brittany are so tight, like, I guess why even fake it at that point? Like Kylan throwing it at the end, like people were saying he sucks at acting, but I don't know. I guess it seems like that's such a big part of the strategy, like to just put your blinders on and try to win just for the sake of winning the competition itself. I don't find it so offensive that people throw, like, I don't think it makes for a worse viewing. If I want to watch a competition, I can watch sports. But like, I guess this one, it just seemed so unlikely that Brittany would pull it out. Like, why throw it?
Well, Brittany has won a veto before. I don't think it's so unlikely that she could win. I don't hate watching someone throw just for the sake of throwing, but I hate that you do it obvious, because the other house guests are watching you, and perception is everything in the game. So that's when I'm like, why are you obviously throwing something and you're basically showing your cards to other people.
But in this case, isn't it
that's
like
bad gameplay?
Isn't the Ozza and Brittany alliance, like, isn't that by design shown, like, that they're the pair?
But are you saying that pair is better than the cookout?
I'm saying that,
and better is not the right word, but more important,
sure.
You're more loyal to your Brittany instead of the cookout. That's what you're showing the rest of the cookout, and you've got to consider that. It doesn't look good to the cookout, which is your alliance. Mm-hmm. You just got to think about that stuff when you're throwing things. That's all. The next one, though, Brittany's going to go ahead and get eliminated all by herself the next round, so that didn't last at all. Although I think
2020
Ozza,
hindsight on saying Brittany could never win it.
Ozza and I have the same arms. We don't have any muscle. I don't think Ozza was going to last. She couldn't pull herself up. I don't think she was going to do well. After Brittany's eliminated, Claire is eliminated. Poor Claire. She's on the block. This stinks.
I loved when Claire got, I think this was her last round. I loved how she didn't even get all the way up. She just sort of swung. She sort of used like some kind of leverage or like pivot to get to the top. Because, she just sits in her computer chair.
Yes, I love Claire. She's a super fan, and I know she enjoyed playing Otav. A bummer, though, she couldn't win. But so now we're down to Kyland and Alyssa. And you know what, Kyland? All you have to do is win the veto. You've already decided that Claire's going to come off the block. So you would be giving her the first choice of taking herself down. And then you, as HOH, have complete control. There's literally, well, I was going to say there's no reason, but he comes up with reasons for not winning.
Yeah. Now, I think, like I've already said, I think this is a mess for Kyland, but I kind of saw what he meant about taking her off and like sort of winning her trust back. What did you think about that?
I think that Kyland is a master gaslighter. That is a method he likes. He likes to knock you down and then lord his power over you. That is a solid method of Kyland. So in his head, I can see that he's like, yes, I put Claire in danger. I put her on the block. And now I don't want her to have, the power to do anything, because if he wins a veto, she would get the power to take herself off. He can't give her the power. He has to be the one to save her and therefore lord that over her. So I can see how his brain thinks that way. Do I like it? No, because you already put her in danger. So how does this make sense?
So I guess I thought it made sense because he put her in danger. Mm-hmm. She was originally his target. Mm-hmm. Somehow that changed. He now has to, like, she's staying, I think, is the plan. Like, he knows that she's staying. So if he doesn't do it this way, he wins, right? So let's say he wins the competition. She gets to
Yeah. Jessica's saying it perfectly here. You don't win trust
well,
by
sure, but
putting
he
someone on the
did that
bottom.
anyway. Like, now what, I guess, is my point. Like, he's already done that thing. And so, and now he's realizing she's going to stick around. Like, he obviously didn't plan for her to be there when he put her on the block. I think part of the problem is that Alyssa is the final remaining competitor.
Yes, let's talk about that. Because gaslighter or not, if he wins veto, Claire can come down, right? But he is allowing Alyssa, right? We only have 3 options: Brittany, Alyssa, and Claire. Those are the ones they keep talking about. No one's talking about Derek guys. So he's allowing Alyssa to basically take herself off the list. So he is extending his hand to her, and he's also extending his hand to Xavier because that's the duo. And he's saying, Xavier, my buddy, I'm going to allow your girl to protect herself. That is the other side here. If he won and let Claire take herself off, Alyssa is an option to go up, and someone could have tried to talk him into it. But this way, he's allowing Alyssa to not be an option his week.
Yeah, I think, it's very hard to keep track of these different. I would probably have to write it down, honestly.
Yeah,
but
I have a lot of it.
I totally agree that his strategy. I just want to say, I agree that his strategy involves lying to, gaslighting Claire, like basically trying to salvage things, somehow try to convince her that she was a pawn all along, never the intended target. That's why he saved her. Whatever, right? Totally agree that is slimy. It is what it is. I just thought that, like, in this situation, I thought that might have been best for his personal game without also, basically keep himself as strong as he can after the mess of an HOH and not betray the cookout. So that's what I was thinking. But I find that sort of final calculus to be pretty confusing.
Well, this just goes hand in hand with this whole everyone's got a duo.
Yeah. And
how do you subtly save that person without being like, no, cookout, I want to save somebody? One way is throwing them a comp. So here, Alyssa, and who was it? Dahlia, I think I passed your comment. I would disagree. He threw a comp. I guess you're right. He threw a comp. He just didn't throw it well. Once again, Kyland's standing there with,
right.
Like, this is not how you throw a comp. So again, perception is everything. Everyone was very aware he threw it. And that just adds more questions and more, why do you look so shady?
Yeah, and I guess this one, like that throwing compared to Azza, the difference for me is that like Azza is known to be super protective of Brittany, more of an emotional player, and sometimes not in a strategic way. It wouldn't feel shady to me for Azza to, turn and throw a comp to Brittany, especially if it's obviously in the interest of the Jokers. Kyland throwing a comp to Alyssa gets the wheels turning. Like, where did that come from?
Right.
Like, then you start to do the math, and I think, gaslighting or not, Claire might be suspicious of whatever Kyland says to her. Because she knows, because she could say, Kyland, you're smart. Like, I was safe either way. Like, thanks for saving me, but you also could have just, won the competition and I would have saved myself. So why didn't you do that? Like, you didn't actually, and now I'm realizing that's where it, again, slimy or otherwise, it falls flat. Like, Claire is smart.
Yeah.
Like, she's not going to be that grateful for him throwing it to Alyssa. That doesn't make sense. She could have saved herself.
Yeah, no. And that's just it. It just gets the wheels a turning. It gets the questions popping in your head. Why is he doing this? why does he want to save Alyssa? Like, why he must have a deal with X, like it just makes you question things and look at it a certain way. And yeah, Claire is super suspicious about this whole HOH, and so is Derek X. But let's move forward here. So we now have our 2 vetoes. Alyssa has 1, so Kyland has the 2nd. And he's going to start talking about Brittany as a target. He confirms with Sarah Beth. She'll vote that way. Sure. Derek Frazier, not so happy. And he does try to push it on Derek X, which Leo has already said, that's the way to go. A lot of people agree with you, but he's not going to do it. And for some reason, he tells Sarah Beth to go give Brittany a heads up so that we can have a little bit of tension before the veto ceremony. Did this feel odd to anybody else?
Well, I'll say something about it. One of the things that felt odd about it was how agreeable Sarah Beth was to that. Mm-hmm. Like, she was just like, all right, see ya. I'll go pull aside Brittany. She didn't even pull her aside. She sat next to her at the pool. I thought for sure she was going to say, can I steal you for a second? Like,
yeah,
that
right.
would have been, at least that would have given Brittany a chance. Again, not even like from a human perspective exactly, but just from a social, like, normally you wouldn't just be like, hey, there's 4 other people here. I'm going to tell you that Kyland's maybe thinking about you. And yeah, if it was like, if Kyland wasn't planning on denying it later, because that might have at least made some sort of sense. Like, not really sense in like a big picture way, but like if Kyland wasn't going to deny it, he could have just told Brittany himself, I suppose is what I'm getting at. Why involve Sarah Beth?
Right. All Kyland had to do was open that sliding glass door and be like, hey, Brittany, can I talk to you for a second? And then Brittany comes inside and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you up. Like, that's all that happened. But instead, she has to like go find him and then be like, what's happening? And then he's going to be his typical vague self and be like, you're an unpredictable variable.
Kyland could have just like walked by that group of 4 and said, hey, Brittany, by the way, I'm probably going to put you up.
Well,
like, that would have had the same outcome.
I wish more people would do that. That would actually be very entertaining.
I mean, it truly, strategically, I think it would have been the exact same. Like that's one moment where we could have had that.
Yeah, and I don't understand why Sarah Beth was like, sure, I'll be happy to. Their relationship, I don't know. I don't fully get it. But I guess it works for them. So for the second week in a row, you guys, we don't get a veto ceremony. We don't get to see what happens yet. We get this little tension cliffhanger here where they're going to, what are some people considering that Brittany has saved herself? I don't think so. I think we know where it's heading, even if you don't watch the live feeds, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I would love to hear Sarah Beth and Kyland and any of their strategic discussions. I suspect they don't have any strategic discussions. I think they just like spending time together.
They might. They do have strategic discussions, and I'm fascinated by them because Kyland will, spell it out to her, and then she'll spell out something totally different to him. They will not agree. She'll talk about cookout members, whatever, and he'll try to gaslight her. He'll try to manipulate her, and she doesn't fall for it. She'll say, no, I think blah, blah, blah. And she just sticks to her guns. She doesn't really try to change his mind. And yet they still come together, tell everyone or tell each other everything, but he doesn't actually have control over her.
Maybe that's why he likes her?
I think he likes her enough that it doesn't matter, at least. It's very unusual. I think they just, Teresa, good point. Maybe Sarah Beth felt like she was important and a part of this HOH.
Well, she definitely is, in that she's basically controlling him to not put her up. Like,
in
a way.
I think that Sarah Beth thinks that she's playing the Casey game and that he is Tyler and that she doesn't have to do anything and she's just going to sit next to him at the final 2. I think that's what's going on in her head. I'm not sure. Again, I told you, I said, I don't know what's going on in Sarah Beth's head.
who those people are and the outcome.
Oh,
So
you don't
no,
know.
I actually sort of just learned something about that season. I know enough to follow that, but I didn't know that was the Casey game.
The point is that Tyler did everything. Casey, she won some comps, but she just kind of allowed him to do everything. But she was able to pull out the win at the end. Because everybody liked her.
I don't know. I mean, I think that the other thing, well, I won't comment on seasons I haven't watched, but I think that Kyland, I feel like he has just lost so much goodwill by running his mouth. He seemed really popular for a while there.
He sure was. He definitely took a nosedive. I mean, the cookout is still cookout strong, but there's definitely discussion of him going first once they get to 6. We'll see what really happens. But people outside of the cookout are definitely suspicious of what the heck he was doing this HOH. Let's get into spoilers, you guys. That's the end of the episode. Leo, you have to give me jazz hands or something like this while I sing my song. Okay. Spoilers. Yay! All right, let's spell it out. We have a veto ceremony that happened. Kyland does use his first in that order, so he does take Claire off of the block, and he replaces her with Brittany. He asked Alyssa not to use hers, and she said okay, so she does not use hers. Brittany is the new nominee sitting next to Derek Frazier.
I wonder, I'm trying to put myself in Alyssa's shoes. I know she wants to build a relationship with Kyland to a degree. Obviously, it would be a huge gut punch if she were to turn around and take Brittany off, because Kyland just put Brittany up. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if there's someone else she could have. I mean, she has a lot of power in that moment, right? Like, she could take Big D down. Who would Alyssa want to go, I guess, is what I'm pondering. Like, who's Alyssa's target in this moment? Or is she just trying to keep blood off her hands?
Yeah, Alyssa's not in a great place in the house. She lost her showmance last week. She has she has Xavier on her side, but for the most part, she's not really working closely with anyone. So it would behoove her to just lay low, do what Kyland says, and not rock any boats, because she doesn't have, it's not like Xavier's in trouble. That's really the only person that she would save at this point. She'd love to get Derek X out. So if she were really bold, she could have used hers and put Derek X right next to Brittany, and then we would have had ourselves a game, you guys. But she's just not that kind of player.
Right, because so let's play that out, though. If she took Big D down, then Kyland's only non-cookout options are...
Wait, yeah, and I'm talking like she got to say the renom, which she doesn't. It's Kyland.
That's what I'm saying. No, but
yeah,
I think we get to maybe the same place, right? Because she takes Big D down. The only non-cookout options at that point are Derek X outside of Sarah Beth, right? Mm-hmm. So taking Big D down would effectively be putting Derek X up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which she would have liked that.
And let's say her closest ally is Xavier. I wonder, I mean, I think he would have gone for that, because he said in the last episode that he was going to take his first shot at that would have been his shot at Derek X. I can't wait to see.
Xavier doesn't think about these things, though.
Xavier?
Yeah, he doesn't see like the chess pieces. He doesn't think about that. He just says, next week I got to take Derek X up. He's not even playing checkers. He's playing Let Me Smile.
Pinball?
And, maybe a little pinball. I don't know. Yeah,
Tetris?
I'm not sure. Okay. I know you have a lot of questions about the cookout and how this all works, and it is confusing, but let's talk a little bit about how this vote is going to go down. Brittany is sitting next to Derek Frazier. Cookout has the numbers. They can send everyone home sitting next to someone in the cookout. But like we have stressed, Derek X and Claire are totes sus from this week. They do not understand what Kyland has done. They do not understand why they would send Brittany out over Derek Frazier. Derek Frazier is something that we call a goat. in these shows, not the greatest of all time. He's someone you can easily sit next to, and you would get all the votes in the end. If you're sitting next to him in the final two, you sit next to him in these chairs, and he's not a threat, so you would go over him. He's someone that should come out of the game in their minds. So they, for the last few days, have been like, wouldn't we want to keep Brittany? What are we doing? And the cookout is having to subtly be like,
Now, I'm having trouble distinguishing between Derek F. and Brittany in this situation, because aren't they both, not that strong in competitions? Brittany has won one veto. She tries hard and, has a lot of energy. And then socially,
that's not a fair statement. Derek Fraser, not even close to Brittany.
In terms of what?
In winning comps, Brittany has the possibility of winning comps.
True.
Derek Fraser does not.
Okay, but I think Derek F. is definitely stronger than Brittany in terms of social game. Not super strong, but like Brittany has a reputation for just being a pawn, playing with her emotions, and I mean, even she doesn't even have the chance to play strategically, or maybe she does. Maybe that's even too generous, right? Look, at the end of the day, she just continues to go up and go up, right? So, like,
she doesn't have a great game. No,
isn't Brittany also a possible GOAT? I suppose is what I'm getting at.
No, I wouldn't call her she's not a clear GOAT at this point. Okay. She's not clearly someone I dragged to final two. She doesn't have a great social game, and she doesn't have a great strategic game, but she might be able to win some comps, but she's big and loud, and that's not someone that you just drag to final two. Whereas he is definitely someone you drag to final two. Now, she might be, if I ended up sitting next to her, maybe she gets 0 votes. But at this point, we don't know that. So you just have to, and I think that you have a good point there. They are very similar. No one is closely working with them except the cookout, that kind of stuff. They are very similar. But if you're Derek X and you're Claire, you would look at them and say, I don't want to keep him in the game. I want to keep Brittany. Brittany will go after Kyland for me. Like, she's someone I can weaponize, I can use. She's not coming for a lot of people in the house. She's coming for just a couple people. Kyland, Sarah Beth, maybe Xavier. And there are plenty of people in the house who would like to keep her in so that maybe she could go after those people. But what's complicated is that the cookout has to somehow keep everyone voting Derek to save Derek, to vote Brittany out without showing their cards. And so we keep having all of these very interesting conversations where they're like, oh, yeah, no, good point. But I mean, we could just, no, that's everyone. But yeah. A little Tiffany. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so do you think that the strategy would be to try to, I mean, I suppose you could do both, but like you could try to pull in another player, right? Try to convince at least one other player to vote to keep Big D. Mm-hmm. Or you could throw a cookout vote to raise at least some suspicion, right? Like to make it seem like it wasn't that solid to 6.
Well, okay. So Azza would like to give Brittany her vote, and that would make sense. No one would be suspicious of that. They're very close. She would like to give her that vote. But the rest of the house, they want to keep it a house, would vote to evict Brittany. Otherwise, you're explaining, again, to your closest ally, Tiffany, Hannah, have to explain to Claire and DX why they are not voting with them. They have voted together. Every week, you sit down together and you say, we want to keep this person for this reason, and they vote together. So this week, how do you still make it that they vote together, but your way, when you can't explain, I'm in this alliance that you're not in. Yes, it's very fun to watch, and it makes me excited to see that Derek and Claire are asking the questions and maybe raising an eyebrow because they're not really getting good answers, but yet they're not being able to convince their allies. They could conceivably accidentally get a 4-4. I don't know that they're going to be able to get 5-3 and save Brittany, but they could accidentally get 4-4, which would be hilarious. Kyland would break the tie and evict Brittany. It doesn't save Brittany, but he would have to very much show his cards because he's doing this weird thing, Leo. He's doing this thing where he's saying he's impartial. He doesn't care which one goes. Yeah. So when someone questions, like,
he's just being rational.
He's like, I don't know, maybe, 75% want Brittany to go, but like, I could be convinced otherwise. So Derek X tries to convince him, and then Derek X is not actually convincing him, when in reality, all you have to do as an HOH, you've done it every week up till now, is said, Brittany's coming after me. I need her gone. I put her up for a reason. She's the target. And then people don't have...
That would simplify things.
Yes,
then you
exactly.
Wouldn't need 1,000 side conversations and everyone to sort of be picking their individual partners to convince. Because I was wondering / thinking, at what point, maybe this is already happening, but I haven't seen it. At what point do DX and Claire have a conversation, right? And say, this isn't, because I know DX has already picked up on the pairs and maybe something going on there. But like, it seems like thin ice to me. Like, at some point they could decide, like, we want to have our own little secret thing going. Like, we don't have to be controlled or like always being convinced by our handlers to vote in a certain way. I wonder if they could have that conversation.
They have definitely had quite a few conversations, and they're leaning that way. But, and this kind of goes to who left the comment earlier, that it's so obvious, the cookout. It's not obvious. They've done such a good job of infighting. They don't ever sit in a room together.
They don't even like each other.
Yeah, they really don't. So even though they're collecting these pieces and they're having conversations, they even laughed about it the other night. I think that was Sunday night. Claire and Derek X were like, all the white people are gone. Isn't that hilarious? What if there was another alliance and they were just picking off these white people one by one, and they like laughed about it, and they were like,
historic would that be?
Yeah, they were like, that's brilliant. That's amazing. And they were like, these fake fights.
Right.
And it's like, they're not even fake fights. They're real fights. Yeah. But yeah, this is exactly what's happening. And they can't quite see that it's real, because then you'd have to believe that everything you've said to Tiffany, if you're Claire, wasn't real. For Derek, everything he said to Tiffany isn't real. Sarah Beth for Kyland. Like, they would have to be like, wait, I was played this whole time. And that's really hard to get in your head when you have lived it 40 something days.
So I have to say, it's at least in the game of Big Brother, you go into it knowing, and even I know this, season after season, there are these powerful alliances, right? Maybe not always at this well executed, but like, I guess if I'm DX, what I would have to be thinking is, what was Royal Flush it? I suppose Claire could ask the same question. Like, was that the big alliance? And then I blew it up. And then, I mean, another thing you could ask is like, okay, so I blew up Royal Flush. Well, that was what, 8 people? So what's the strong alliance now? Like, should we be making that? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that would save them, because Cookout would still be probably stronger. In a game like Amazing Race now, if there's suddenly a big alliance, like, that's not, I mean, I think it will be after this last season, but that's not what you're thinking about, right? Like, you don't go into that show, right? So, like, I guess if you're, like, if I ever do a game like this again, I think I will be suspicious. And if I
Good.
do think something's going on, I'll think that's probably what's going on. And I guess that's
Yes.
where I get it that you're in the game and but they're actually describing it. Like it's one thing if you think you have your thing and then of course there's a better thing that's stronger and it like gets you. That I get. Like how can you know? You don't see the edit, how can you know?
Right.
But if there's not like a other alliance that you believe is stronger, then I have to think, like, ask the question.
Yeah. I mean, there's 1,000 alliances this season. And so there are alliances.
Don't forget the French kisses.
Oh, well, yes. But there are, now that we have less people, there are 4 and 5 people alliances. So they just still think that those are the things. And
I guess the Jokers would be perceived as like a type
bit of alliance. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to imagine being in that house and you might be picking up on some stuff, but it's really hard to put all those pieces together and assume that you have been lied to your face by who you consider one of your closest allies. That's a really hard leap to take. And so I was hoping that we would see it from Claire and Derek this week. But they just haven't quite put their finger on it. They're not going to be able to get the numbers in to save Brittany. So they will hopefully go into this HOH knowing that they are not in a great position and they both need to win this HOH because Derek X is definitely the target for next week. And if not Derek, then it'll be Claire.
So the way you're describing it, like if you're having that conversation, if you have that realization as Derek X and Claire, that we're not in a great position, even if you haven't figured out, okay, there's a cookout with these 6 people in it. You've basically figured out the inverse, right? Mm-hmm. And so at that point, you're 2, right? I mean, the risk, of course, is, okay, you try to pull in 1 or 2 more, chances are, well, it will be cookout people because it's Alyssa, and then Sarah Beth is basically an arm of Kyland in that sense. Like, she's as good as in the cookout. I don't know. I mean, they're going to go after her too, right? Like, Kyland is going to not be able to protect her any longer. So I suppose what I'm getting at is that, like, you realize you're in that danger together. Come on. Like, you're in danger together. That means you have to work together, right?
If you fully understand that if you are not a person of color, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that if you were saying, like, going into this next HOH, Dia Claire,
you're not in a good position. Yeah.
Ooh, we're in danger. We have to win. One of us has to win HOH. Well, if you're having that conversation together, it seems like you better start working together, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I hope that they definitely are getting closer, trying to work this out together. And so they might be able to, but, unfortunately, we're going to lose Brittany this week. So that means their numbers are down. They're not going to have any ability to do anything about it once they do get to that point. Although there are a couple twists here, and Derek X does have the money to buy them. So if he can do that correctly, that would be interesting to see. And maybe he can save himself and maybe Claire. But I'm still enjoying it. I know some people are like, whatever, till it's down to the 6, it's boring. But I enjoy seeing non-cookout try to figure it out. And I enjoy the negotiations that the cookout has to do because, like we talked about earlier, everyone wants to try to save their +1 as long as they can, but they have to act like they don't care. And that's interesting to me.
And I think I'm loving it. I think I'm loving the strength of the cookout paired with their dysfunctional relationships. I'm convinced that the trying to save your +1 is more than strategic. I understand the strategy and you're trying to, play an individual game, but it just seems like, Tiffany was saying it, it's obvious, I think, how Kyland feels like it becomes emotional. You're trapped in the house. You have those conversations.
Right.
I have what's probably an unpopular theory, which is that if Alyssa can put it together and not the cookout, but she's I think, thinking pretty strategically. She just hasn't followed through on any moves, really. But I think that Christian getting out could be good for her game in the long run. It could, even in the short run. Like, it gets her thinking, acting more independently. I think she's following the strategy a lot more than Christian was.
Yeah.
BBH.
Yeah.
Great guy, I think. But
Right.
like, you know, kind of just hung out during his HOH. Alyssa, though, was really like working the numbers. I remember Xavier saying, like, it's awfully hard when my team's so smart. I think he was just talking about Alyssa. And I think she's pretty strong in comps.
Like, talking about Sarah Beth. No, I think she's going to have some ability in comps. I think that is where her strength is. She's malleable, which is a strength for Xavier, because he can tell her anything and she 100% believes it. And then she goes forth and tells everyone else, I think we should do this, which she doesn't really have an original thought. She spreads it, but very like firmly and with conviction. So yeah, she's much smarter than Christian, but she does not see the game, but she can be a player, and she's definitely lowered her threat level by not having Christian in the house. I want to answer Lady Di's question. Yes, Xavier 100% wants to win the HOH this week to take out Derek X. This is his revenge plan. He said from the beginning, because Derek took Christian out, he wants to be the one to take Derek X out. So he is going to do that this week. And Linda, the double eviction will more than likely be after these 3. We have these 3 weeks of twists. This is the first week, so we've got 2 more. Then we will have a double eviction.
I will say Lady Di's question goes exactly to what we were saying and what came up earlier, which is that if Xavier were really playing and, you know, playing checkers or even chess, this could have been his week to take out Derek X, because like you just said, Sarah, he could have used Alyssa, convinced her to take, I believe it was Big D off the block. Derek X could have gone up. That could have been his big move, and he wouldn't have even had any blood on his hands. But that didn't happen. Yeah,
no, Xavier wasn't going to win this week because the original plan was Sarah Beth. Then they got these BB bucks. So now Xavier has to up, because you talked about order before. Derek X has always been at the end of the order. He just moved up in the order because he has the BB bucks. So this HOH coming up, Xavier will win, or if Alyssa can win, he will run that HOH and Derek X will go.
But what I'm saying is that because Derek X already had the BB bucks at the time of OTEV, so right. I was saying that Xavier could have convinced Alyssa to use her veto on Big D this week.
Right. If he
this is what we mentioned earlier, and I was reminded of that when we were saying like Alyssa's Xavier's tool, and Lady Di was saying could Xavier take him out next week? And I'm like, sure, but he could have taken him out this week without getting blood on his hands.
Right. Yeah, that would have been very interesting if they could think like that. I would have loved it.
They're probably sleep deprived.
They are sleep deprived, and they to be fair, they have so many things to think about that. When we do see someone think like all of those options, it's so impressive.
It's amazing in that
it's just
environment. Yeah.
Average. You're just not going to. Everybody, that is our Wednesday episode. Tomorrow night, I will be here with Jessica Milagros after the eviction episode to see if they can pull this flip and keep Brittany, or if not. So that will be tomorrow. Leo, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I hope I answered your questions.
Oh yeah, so many. Still more, but you know.
I appreciate all your questions. I appreciate your insight. And you guys, thank you, Ray, for the super sticker. I really appreciate all of you guys in the chat. I love you guys keeping us on our toes, your questions, your insights. And if you're joining later, please leave a comment. Let me know how you feel about Kyland's HOH, losing Brittany, possibly losing Derek Frazier. I don't know, all that stuff, and who you want to win the next HOH. How about that? Oh, and Ben, David will be back this weekend from his 2-week vacation. So if you have missed David, he will come back eventually.
I forgot to wear my David shirt again.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yes. Thank you, Leo, for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. We will see you next time. Okay. Bye.